All right. All right. Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome to Fate's Wide Wheel. I'm Sam,
I'm Dennis. We got a lot to talk about this week.
and it won't be star-crossed.
It will not be Starcrossed. Not yet. I can't remember who it was who commented on
Yeah.
our Facebook page. It was like, I'm guessing it's not Starcrossed this week. Like,
It-
yep,
yeah, that is
you
absolutely going to be
you
true.
are right. But before we dive in, let's do housekeeping like we always do. Find us on the web, fateswidewheel.com, across all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Fates Wide Wheel. You can find us at Patreon, patreon.com, Fates Wide Wheel. By the way, Sam, we got our very first Patreon this week.
Yay! I'm too lazy
We've,
to add a really cool sound effect here, so I'll just say
yeah,
yay!
we've had the account for 5 years, but we've never really pushed it. I think
No,
both you and me, like we're kind of self-conscious about asking
totally.
totally. But thank you. I hope you don't mind us announcing your name in the episode. Dana Buse. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Apologies if we do mispronounce it. But thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you so very much.
thank you so
It's very
much. And
kind.
it's something that we haven't talked about. And I meant to mention to Sam before. I think we're going to start doing. I think if you give to us on any level whatsoever. We're going to start making a practice of reading your name off as part of the credits at the end of our episodes, as to say thank you.
Yeah.
We'll do, like I said, we'll do that on any level, unless like we just start getting like Patreons like out the wazoo, and we got to start trimming that down. I don't see that happening.
Well, and I,
But
and
hey,
I do think too that kind of one of the goals is that eventually, as we do explore this and kind of get a little bit more, I don't know, proactive and professional about it, perhaps, is that we will absolutely explore avenues for different sort of tiers, and I think that certainly a couple of things that have come to mind is potentially doing like a Twitch stream while we record, so that people can watch live if they want to, even participate in like comments live and that sort of stuff, and then perhaps a certain tier you can even participate on those live
oh
streams,
yeah,
beyond like comments, because one of the things that we wanted when we first started the podcast was to always have like a guest host with us to discuss the episodes, and due to the pandemic,
sure,
moving, all sorts of other random elements coming into play, we weren't always able to do this in person. But now that we've obviously figured out the whole virtual scheme of it all, it would be a lot easier to slot people in, via Zoom or Twitch, or whatever else we might be able to do. So we're certainly looking forward to exploring that. We don't have anything set in stone yet, but we'll let you know. We'll keep you updated.
sure.
And so if you're itching to support us, yeah, that sounds awesome. If you've got money, like I said, UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, a local charity that means something to you, go for it. And if after that you still want to throw us a dime, um, we would really appreciate it.
Speaking of bringing in guest hosts, I can't remember the name. Forgive me, but someone on Facebook this week did kind of like gently ask if we'd be interested in having a guest host this week, and we did not respond. And that is not a slight to you, who you left that comment. It's just we're just struggling to keep up this week in our personal lives, and and
And all
and
the
that
new
is why,
news, and I mean, there was so much kind of going on this week.
yeah,
I mentioned on the last podcast that I had accepted an offer for a theater gig, an acting gig here in Chicago, and initially the impression was is that I wouldn't be needed for that because it was an understudy gig for some
mm,
time, until they did their first run through. Turns out that
sure,
the actor who I'm covering is not able to be in rehearsal until the end of this month, so that means that I'm in rehearsal now for for the show, and that kind of came out of nowhere, and so between that and yeah, the family stuff and daylight savings time, and of course all this new news that we've been inundated with, we didn't really even know exactly what we were going to be doing or precisely when we were going to be doing it.
sure.
So we thought about dropping an episode early, and it just became clear that logistically it made more sense to kind of try to stick with
Keep
our,
up with
our
our
regular
usual thing.
time. But yeah,
Yeah.
we would love to have people on again, though, at some point,
Mm.
hopefully in the very near future.
Yeah. And just a quick tangent, real quick. Like I did my fair of understudying shows when I was in Chicago too. Like a couple of them for like from like nice bigger shows. And it's largely a thankless job, but sometimes the two shows I understudied, like one major show, I actually went on for one weekend because it was already known before they started the run that one of the leads was going to be out for one weekend. And another one, I got called in for the very to do the very last dress rehearsal of the show because one of the actors was out with health problems.
Mm.
So I was able to get, it was like 3/4 of the show, and then they cut it off early because like they had some weird rule, like, oh, because it was actual equity show. They had equity cast members.
Mm.
So they actually had a rule. They had to stop rehearsing at a certain point.
Right.
It can be a very rewarding experience, but also they're a very thankless job. So kudos. I hope you get to go on.
Yeah.
Hope
Yeah,
you get to go on. If you
it's
give me enough warning, I'll make it up to Chicago real quick.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't had a chance to meet Patrick. It's funny because the guy I'm covering does a lot of film and TV work. He's SAG after, but he's not equity. So it seems like he, that's kind of more of his bread and butter, and he's done quite a few. I think it's like probably about a dozen episodes of Chicago PD with a recurring role. So
what's his last name again? It's
It's
all good. Don't
yeah,
anyway.
Blas Hill, whatever. Yeah, anyway. Yeah.
Sure. We are not here to talk about us and acting. We are here to talk about. We are here to talk about some other actors, though.
Yes.
Man, by the time we dropped our regular episode on time, but by the time I got the blog post out and our video post out, it seemed like old news. Yeah. Because we had Raymond Lee last weekend, and then.
Which we were able to cover, obviously, Raymond Lee, because we talked about him on the last episode, which was nice to be able to devote a full episode to our lead, to Ben Song, like to be able to, like, that was really cool. But then on the day we drop our episode, we get Ernie Hudson.
Yeah. Oh man,
that was such a cool bit of casting.
The thing is, it's like I did not think that we would be getting like I didn't think we'd be getting like well-known actors really at all.
Sure.
For this, so cool. I'm excited, and we have a couple of guesses that are thanks to Matt Dale.
Yes.
Because we've been chatting back and forth with him. He is just a sleuth on the Instagram. And so thanks to some sleuthing on Instagram, we have some other guesses of who might be in. Actually, he called Mason Alexander Park before it was officially announced.
He did, because he noticed on their
Instagram, because he noticed on their Instagram that Raymond Lee was following Mason Alexander Park, and like looking at non-binary actors, they were the only like non-binary actor like on Raymond's list or top of the list. It was like, oh, actors in Hollywood do the same thing actors in smaller theater cities do. Yeah. Because we do the same thing. We get cast at a show, we start stalking on social media, we start adding everybody left and right. Then the show's over with and you don't talk to them for like another 5
Yeah, I know, right? It's hilarious. It's like probably a good 75% of my friends list are people that I've worked with on one show, and I see them, I like their stuff, but I haven't talked to some of them in like a decade,
absolutely,
or more. Matt has done some incredible work. His, sort of investigative work in picking out these little threads, and then obviously being able to call, Mason's involvement based off of that follow was just genius and wonderful. And it's so great because I feel like we have this wonderful collaborator in Matt, and knowing that I think that, he works for the competition, if you will. I say that jokingly and lovingly. There's no competition. With Quantum Leap podcast, and it's been really cool to kind of have that information sharing going on, because we've obviously shared some information with him that I know that they're going to be talking about on their latest episode, that we've already kind of covered here, so it's not anything new for our listeners necessarily. Sure. But for people that listen to them that don't listen to us, it will be new information. And if you do listen to us and you want to hear it through their lens, then hop over and make sure you listen to their latest episode as well. So it's been really cool to share that information, to have those conversations, because I feel like the three of us in particular, on sort of this side of things, this fandom podcasty, side of things, are so enthused over this that we are trying to every day see what's new. And we've gotten something new, not every day this past week, but like four out of like 5, ain't bad. Yeah. So,
but like on top of the official announcement, like we said, Martin Garrow and Stephen Winbrand have been posting stuff on Instagram, which is really cool. And I actually posted on my personal Facebook page yesterday. It's like, for years I have been saying I will actually believe a new Quantum Leap is being made when I actually see production photos.
And lo and
And
behold,
yesterday, I actually saw production photos.
yeah, oh, it's Brian Winbrandt, by the way.
I'm
I
sorry.
just
I'm
want to.
sorry.
No,
I'm
no, no,
sorry.
it's totally fine.
I'm mashing people up. Sorry.
Right, yeah,
Sorry.
Steve Lillian and Brian Winbrandt
Steve
are.
LeBrun,
Yeah,
I apologize. Like we said,
no,
it's
no,
been a
no.
long week. We are two tired dads. So if little slips like that come through this
Yeah,
week,
it's bound to
um,
happen.
we
Um,
apologize. But it's maybe it's a nice segue into talking about the actors and
yeah,
like the information that we shared with Matt. I do believe you're referring to the fact that we've seen the script and that we've read the script.
right. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. So
and I find it really interesting because Matt has read through the script. He's poured, like he's geeked out. He's already written like his new chapter
well,
for an update of his book. Like if it ever comes out,
let me
Um,
I just want to set this stage for people real quick, because I sent him the script because the
mhm.
Observer sent it to us, and we had it very, very early in the process, way earlier than anybody like us should have had it, but we had it. And then of course a literary agent also sent a copy to you a few weeks
Mhm.
later, and
Captain
so
Galaxy. Yeah.
and so then I ended up, yeah, Captain Galaxy, thank you. Then I ended up sending the script to Matt while he was flying home from the Gallifrey convention out in Los Angeles. So he read it on the flight back, to the
Mhm.
UK, while because I had sent it to him at that point, and it was wonderful to hear his enthusiasm over it, because before, I hesitated to tell him that we had it, just because it was one of those things where it's like, who do we tell, how do we tell, when do we tell? And at that point, I knew we could trust Matt, and I knew that if there was anybody else on the face of the planet, literally, that I would want to share this with, it was Matt Dale. And so to
Yeah.
have the opportunity to be like, Matt, the reason why we know what we know is because we
We
have the script.
script.
And he
Yeah.
was just like, holy smokes, and
Yeah.
so getting the opportunity to share it with him,
It,
yeah, it was
it's
great.
amazing. So what I find interesting is he has read it, but he said Allison and Chris, the other two co-stars of Quantum Leap podcast, they they don't want to read the script at
Yeah,
all. They want to be surprised. And for me, I find it really interesting because like I maybe it's like the theater background, but I absolutely had no issues
hmm,
whatsoever at reading the script beforehand. To me, it was like getting to see the pilot early.
sure, sure.
It's getting to see one version of the pilot early, and then we'll see what happens when it comes out. So I'm geeked out about that. Now, this like all of these cast members that have come out, I don't really find any real drive to go see the work of Raymond and Mason and Caitlin and Nanrisa and
Right,
Ernie before we get started. Like, I don't find that important. I want to be surprised by that. To me, I
sure,
don't want that to be spoiled. Like, I almost don't want to see them in other work. I don't want to have any preconceived notions of them. I just want to truly see them as the
sure. As those
characters
characters, that
when the
I
show
mean,
comes out.
that's totally fair. And for me, I think with Raymond in particular, I wanted to familiarize myself with him a little bit, mostly
Sure.
so we could talk about him. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that had we not been doing the podcast, I probably would not have gone out and sought out his shows
Sure.
beforehand, and I wouldn't have watched Kevin Can F Himself or Here and Now, but because we do the podcast, yeah, I felt like I wanted to do that. I wanted to see his work a little bit, and with Ernie, I'm familiar with his work already, and with the rest, with Nanrisa, I've actually seen her in a couple of things, but I don't necessarily like really, really remember her. I mean, I remember her enough to be like, oh, okay, cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, the rest of the cast. I mean, obviously with Caitlin, which we'll get into in a second, there's nothing really we could see. So yeah, it's fascinating. And then of course there's another potential cast member who I'm very familiar with as well. So yeah, it's interesting. But as far as reading the script beforehand, yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. One thing I will say is that I appreciate the number of listeners that have commented that they're glad that we've read it, and they're encouraged by what we've had to say about it, but they
Sure.
don't want to read it. That actually makes me feel good in a way, because one of my concerns, one of my fears, quite frankly, is that listeners would, you know, not like that we had read it, or would want, to read it, would be like, oh,
Sure.
share it with me, let me see it, that sort of stuff. And because that hasn't really happened, it's made me feel really good about the fact that, like, we got this, we did this thing, we're doing it just for the benefit of the fandom and the audience as best we can. But again, we have legitimate reasons for not wanting to just, put it
Sure.
out there for download or whatever.
Yeah.
But all that aside, yeah, let's dive into this cast. Let's talk about our magic. Let's talk about Ernie Hudson.
Sure. Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah. What order do you want to go in here? I mean, yeah, I didn't think we would get like well-known people for this show.
I mean, the guy's, yeah, I mean, the guy's he's a movie star. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah.
Between like the first couple Ghostbusters movies and and all the other stuff that he's done, I mean, he's done some television obviously as well. Especially recently, he's done quite a bit more television. But for me, one of the things that popped into my head immediately when I saw him, and I honestly kind of hope that it mirrors part of his portrayal of magic, that he brings some of that same quality that he brought to this other role, was his role in The Crow as the police officer, Albrecht in The Crow. I loved him in that, and I feel like in many ways he is kind of the heart and soul of that film. I mean, Brandon Lee is incredible, and obviously the tragic circumstances surrounding that movie, cut short the
Sure.
life of someone who I believe would have been an incredibly huge movie star in the 90s, without a doubt. Like, I mean, after that film, he would have been in as high demand as any other young, like, actor, especially on the action movie side of things. I mean, he could have potentially displaced Keanu. You know what I mean? Like, he could have been in The Matrix. That he would have been that sort of actor.
Sure. Yeah.
But all that aside, I thought that Ernie Hudson was kind of just the heart and soul of that film in so many ways, and I loved the quality that he brought to that role, because there was this kind of like jaded, slightly embittered police officer living in this crime-infested city, but also so passionately wanted justice for this couple who had been savagely murdered, just short of their wedding day, and that he carried that with him, all this time before these, supernatural circumstances bring this guy back to life. And it just made me kind of connect in a way the dots to magic as being this guy potentially who is in the same way kind of seeking some sort of like quality of justice for Sam, and by extension Al.
Yeah. That's why, like, there have been some articles that have mistakenly called him the new Al.
Right, the new
and
Al,
I
yeah.
will say mistakenly in the fact, like, he's not the hologram, and that's what the casual fan like thinks of.
Right.
But in many ways, he is the new Al.
Yes.
One, he's the name. He's the most well-known name
Right.
in the show, and that was Dean Stockwell
Right.
at the time, because he had just got the Oscar nomination for Married to the Mob.
Well, yeah, and he'd also been working in film for 40 some odd years, from film and TV, at that point.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah, he was making his way back. Funny, a little side story. This is just a story that I read about Dean Stockwell when stories came out after his passing away. His part in Dune came because he directly approached the director and asked to be in the film.
That's hilarious. Had he worked with David Lynch at that point?
Listen, do you know what was the director of Dune David Lynch?
Yeah,
Forgive
it was
me.
David Lynch. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You know what David Lynch said?
No, what?
Basically, he said, "I don't know how to tell you this. I thought you were dead."
Oh, wow.
Because Stockwell had been mostly out of the business for so long, he thought that he had just passed away.
Oh my god.
And at the time, there wasn't a role in the movie form, but then an actor dropped out, and that's how Dean Stockwell got the role.
Well, and then the reason why I asked is because I know obviously he was in Blue Velvet, which came out
Sure.
the following was his next film, was David Lynch's next movie. So
Out of that, yeah.
at that point that they had already worked together on Dune. So yeah, that is fascinating.
Anyway, forgive the tangents. But anyway, but he is the new Al in the way of, like, he is the military liaison. He is what is keeping the Pentagon at bay from the project. So it is. He is
Navy SEAL. I mean, obviously, is someone also that Sam had had
Lived
leapt
it.
into,
Hmm.
and used that to change things. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah, I think that the character is awesome, and I love the idea of Ernie Hudson playing this character. I think the wonderful thing about this is he's incredibly age appropriate. One of the things that you and Matt and I kind of went around and around about was, were they going to do some sort of like trickery with Magic's age, because the character, in 1970, the youngest that he probably would have been like 22, maybe 21 at the youngest. And when we started kind of doing the math, we're just sort of like, okay, when we're talking about somebody who's going to be in their 70s, early to mid 70s. Now, at this point, it looks like it's pretty sure for sure that the show takes place in 2022, not
Hmm.
2025, as had been kind of guessed at by some people, including Matt. And so
Sure.
Ernie's 76 years old. Magic, by our math, would have probably been 75. So he's totally the right age, and it doesn't
Hmm.
it doesn't mess anything up. It doesn't make it seem like again, it's just another sign of the fidelity that Lillian and Winbrand in particular have to the original show, and how much they love the original show, that they're not trying to cut any corners, that they're not trying to cast this in such a way that's just sort of like, well, it's Hollywood, this is what you do. It's like, no, this guy's a Vietnam
Hmm.
veteran, and we're going to, honor that original aspect of the character by casting somebody who's age appropriate for the role.
Yeah. Now here's a question for you that I've been kind of thinking about. Uh, God, fate, or time, whatever, willing that this gets picked up into a series. Do you think at some point Magic is just going to drop the knowledge that he knows that at some point Sam leaped into him? Or do you think this is what I hope they do? I prefer that they do this. At some point in the series, something happens, something clicks, and Magic is like, son of a bitch.
I think it really depends on, in my mind, it depends on the other characters that could potentially be involved. Do we see a retired senator, Diane from Honeymoon Express? Do we see, Tom Beckett at some point? Do we see some of these other characters
Mhm.
who are able to interact in such a way that have had some sort of impact or effect on Project Quantum Leap, or Sam Beckett, who has also, of course, impacted their lives through his leaping? Will we see some sort of connection between these characters, some sort of conversation that takes place, that they have that knowledge? Or, like you said, will it be a discovery? Will it be something that comes along where they're like, holy shit, like, will Tom and Magic have a moment together? Like, let's pretend for a moment that, Tom is in an episode at some point in the first or second season or whatever. Do they have a moment together where Tom all of a sudden realizes, you didn't save my life, my little brother saved my life, and he was sleeping around in time, and he was you,
Or
or will there be like a support group for people that Sam has leapt into, where you see like some people, like Magic with a couple of other folks that are just sort of like, Sam Beckett changed my life. I don't think that's the
yeah,
route that they're going to go, but
but and I've seen someone point this out, and recently, what if Tom already knew by the end of the episode?
well, that's a good point, because he does have that line about thanks little brother.
The brother, yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's just an aside that I thought would be interesting to. I really hope that they give us that reveal on screen, that Magic figures out that he had been looped into.
Yes, I agree. I would rather us see the discovery as opposed to having it be something that he already knows. Yeah,
Yeah,
I completely agree.
I'm taking a look at David Newsom, who played Tom Beckett.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's been active, not very active. Most recently, he was in a movie in 2021. He was in an episode of Orange Is the New Black. Oh, and he also guest starred in a certain episode, a certain TV series, Men of a Certain Age.
Oh, well, how about that?
So yeah.
I
Anyway,
think we talked about that actually on the episode that we did
I'm
for
sure it
Millie
probably did.
Poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really do hope that they bring him in at some point. I would love to see Tom Beckett, as an older man, and
Hmm.
how he has handled the intervening years, and in particular how he handled the disappearance of his brother, and what effect these past 30 years have had on him. I think that that's something that would be incredibly interesting. I think that the big elephant in the room, as far as I'm concerned, though, and we've kind of hinted at this before, is going to be Donna and Sammy Joe. It's like, how do you handle that? Do you handle that? What do we do here? I think that there's potential, yes, but
Hmm.
in my mind, if I'm being completely honest, I want to stay as far away from that as possible for as long as they possibly can, because I just feel like it would be a little too much too soon. I would rather see somebody like Tom first.
Sure.
I'd rather see Katie Beckett. You know what I mean? I'd rather see, like, if you're gonna bring
Hmm.
in like another legacy character, you've already got Magic there. You've got some connections to other characters potentially. I just think that, like, that element of it, it draws the focus very far away from our new cast, who we need to talk about,
Yeah.
and I think that at this early stage in the show, it would be better to save that for later.
Hmm.
Pending Sam/Scott's involvement.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
So after Ernie, who do we have, Dennis?
After we have, let's talk about, let's just go down the list. Let's talk about Caitlin Bassett. I'm not familiar
All
with Caitlin
right.
Bassett's work
Well, there's a reason for that.
because there's not much work that we have to be familiar with
That's right.
publicly. She is very new. She is, I won't go down her resume, but she is former military, decided to retire from the military, pursue acting, graduate, I believe, from the Stella Adler Conservatory,
Hmm.
was discovered through the ABC Discovers Talent program. And what you said before we hit record, she sounds like she is very much Addison,
Yeah.
because I think we mentioned it in a previous episode that Addison is former military herself.
Yes. Yeah. Having served, I can't remember if it's made clear, but I think it's a couple of tours in
Mhm.
Afghanistan. I
Yeah.
think she has maybe some sort of medical background, perhaps. But yeah, I don't want to go too deeply into that. But
Sure.
yeah, it was really funny to me to read about her background and just be like, oh my gosh, like, that's kind of is Addison.
Yeah.
Really interested to see what she will bring to the role. I think, one of the things that we were able to gather from some of the images that were posted on Instagram by the creative team, is that one of the scenes that they were probably filming today, Sunday, March 13th, was probably at Addison's apartment, just based off of what we could see there, because it looked awfully
Hmm.
modern for 1989. And I will say that, I'll just drop this. Why not? That the only other place we visit besides the project in the present, if you will, is Addison's apartment.
Hmm.
So it looks like they were probably filming that today. So she's working. She's doing it. She's doing
Yeah.
the thing. And I cannot wait to see what she does. I think that one of the things that we mentioned early on is I believe that so much of this show will hinge on the chemistry between Caitlin and Raymond. I think that the two of them,
Hmm.
that's going to be kind of our heart of the show. I mean, that's our leaper and our observer, same as Sam and Al. So I can't wait to see what they bring, because I think it'll be something very different. Obviously, not just because it's a man and a woman, but I think just the nature of their relationship, the nature of their backgrounds, it'll be
Hmm.
something different, and I'm just so jazzed to see that. It's like that thing where we're talking about reading the script, and it's like, yeah, we've read the script, but we don't know what we're gonna actually get. We don't know what we're gonna
Sure.
actually see. Like, I cannot
Hmm.
wait to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. I don't know how much I can say without like starting divulging things from the script that we don't want to divulge. But anyway,
I probably said too much.
anyway, on down the wait, you're gonna get to see them at home, which some we only got a very little bit of
Yes.
in the series. But yeah, let's go down to Mason Alexander Park.
Yes. I mean, such a great career already for them. They've played Hedwig and the Angry Inch for the
That's right.
original
Yeah.
Broadway national tour. They've also been in the recent Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, and will be in the upcoming Netflix adaptation of The Sandman. They're playing Desire, which is, I mean, perfect casting. They even look a lot like the some of the artistic interpretations. The
Hmm.
character, even in the comic book, kind of changes appearances quite a bit. But I'm really excited to see their performance in The Sandman.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, just I love the representation. I love the fact that they wanted to cast this as a non-binary role, but that it was open to anyone, any ethnicity. But they encouraged non-binary people to audition, obviously, and that they went with with Mason is awesome.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward. I would. What I find interesting is like in the cast character description, they say that Ian, the character that they are playing, gets along more with computers than with people. But even just from what we've seen from reading the script, I don't think that's going to be accurate. And I say that to say I think Ian is going to bring a lot of heart to the show on the project side.
Oh, yes.
Just even from the little bit that we got of them in the pilot script.
It's a wonderfully written character.
Because even as I was reading it, I was like, that doesn't really match what it says in the character description about to get along more with computers than people. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that they are a I think that they are a wonderful character, and I think that it's a it's going to be really cool to see the actor um,
yeah,
inhabit that role, because there's just a lot of really cool stuff there for
yeah,
without a doubt.
and also guessing, and I guess I'll drop one more detail from the pilot script. Say, why not? Let's just drop some little nuggets in there. One thing we don't really know from the pilot script. Sam, feel free to edit this out because I don't know if I should be saying this as I say it. While we do know Ziggy is in existence, we don't know if Ziggy is going to necessarily be the same sassy Ziggy that we know from the classic series.
Right.
But if Ziggy ends up does having a voice, I have a feeling that we're gonna see a lot of banter between Ian and Ziggy.
Yes, there is no doubt, and I think that we've kind of already talked a little bit about this. That they are, I mean, they are deeply connected. You
Yeah,
know, Ian and Ziggy. I mean, Ian is the one that gets Ziggy working again, because
sure.
that's the thing. It's like, I don't think that this is too spoilery because we've already talked about it. Like at the beginning of the episode, like the project's not ready. That's one of the things that obviously Ben has in common with Sam. Sam left before things were ready, and he Ben does the same thing. So they don't know how any of this is going to go, and I think that Ian's character specifically, their job is to basically get things running so that they can figure out what the hell they can do to get Ben back.
Yeah,
Um, so there's a lot of weight on their shoulders.
yeah,
But yeah, but their relationship will be fascinating, and I think will certainly be one of the core aspects of what we see back at the project.
I can already imagine there are going to be these tense moments that, like in the original series, we would see between Al and Ziggy. I have a feeling
Mhm.
we're going to see like these tense moments of like there needs to be this key piece of information that Ziggy needs to find for
Yes.
Ben to be able to do the thing, and it's going to be Ian actually who is yelling at Ziggy to
Right.
figure stuff out to get the
Well,
thing.
I think it was Carol Davis that had mentioned this, and we had talked about it, I believe, a few episodes ago. Mentioned it briefly. That one of the things that they have done so wisely by having this be a show that's a little bit more of ensemble nature is that you've got a little bit better of a division of labor, so that Al doesn't have to know everything,
Yes,
and Sam doesn't have to have 10 degrees. You've got more support this way. You have these characters that can lend their expertise in different manners. Now it does appear that Addison is the observer. Like, I don't think this is going to be a
sure.
case where there's like a revolving door of observers,
Oh
but
God, I hope not.
obviously she'll be in
Yeah,
contact with the rest of our crew back at Project Quantum Leap, and they will be able to offer quite a bit. And once Ziggy is up and running, Ziggy starts offering stuff through the hand link, just like in the old show. So but it's nice that we don't have to have a character that's done everything.
yeah.
We don't have to have a moment in season 3 where Ben turns to Addison and says, let me guess, you've also been an XYZ,
Yeah,
like we had in the original series. So
yeah.
I think it's a great idea to do that, and plus the other thing is it just gives us a richer texture to draw from in
Sure.
general, and that's not a knock on the original series. I mean, the original series is perfect the way that it was, and didn't need to have that expansive cast. But I think that making the choice to do this, it just gives them a lot more opportunity. So
Sure.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays together, not just Ian and Ziggy.
Yeah, and touching on this a little bit, Carol made a comment that I didn't respond to. This was a couple weeks ago. I just liked the comment, but I didn't like actually respond just because life and busy and stuff. But she commented how it I can't remember how she worded it. It was always haphazard the way they visited the future in the classic series. Like it always looked fake.
Yes, right.
Um, and one thing that I really hope that they do differently in the new series is the waiting room.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
because some of the novels, the way they dealt with the waiting room is they completely bucked what the series did with the blue walls and the weird table with the mirror in it. Like, why do you want to put a table? Why do you want to put a mirror in a room where you're going to traumatize the damn person because they don't look like themselves?
right.
Where I think a couple of the novels like made it clear that the waiting room was more like this very nondescript, plain hospital room so as to not freak the leapy out and so as to not tip them off that they were in the future.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right,
Almost kind of like that blank wall that Steve Rogers wakes up in at the end of the
right.
first Captain America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm really hoping that they do a more appropriate redo of the waiting room in the new series.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering how much they do explore the waiting room.
right. I know. Um, it will be really interesting to see how that comes into play because it's not something we see as far as we know.
As far as yeah,
You know, it's not. It's not in the. It's not in the pilot.
yeah.
So
So yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I do hope that they. It seems like things are going to be updated and that there will be some differences. Obviously, you know,
sure.
even from the way that certain things are described. So, the future tech, if you will I'm sure will be rendered in exciting ways. And again, I just think that based off of the fidelity that we see to the classic series already, and even you look at like the title logo that's on the clapboard, which could
Oh, God, it
change.
looks cool. Yeah.
You know, that might not be the end product. It likely will be, but it might not be.
Hmm.
But even if it is, it's this wonderfully kind of updated version of what we know in a way. Like, it feels familiar without feeling like the exact same title.
Oh,
So
sure.
brilliant. I love it, and I think that that's kind of I think that that's probably the aesthetic that they'll go for overall. Things will feel familiar, but they're not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the ways that they'll kind of maybe improve on things with having a bigger budget and having a little bit more technological know-how in general, based off of a show that was produced over 30 years ago, is they'll be able to give us something that you know doesn't doesn't look quite as fake. you know.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but all that aside, we also got another cast member announced, and that is Nanrisa Lee as Jen, who is our security officer.
Mhm.
She doesn't get a whole lot to do in the pilot, you know, so it'll be interesting to see how the role is expanded. I'm sure that she's going to have more to do as the series goes on, and I think that look, it's a big assumption. It's a to make, but I don't think there's much question that this thing's gonna go to series. Like it's gonna happen. You know, like
Mhm.
I just feel like everything that's already kind of in place
Yeah.
in my mind points me in the direction that this thing's gonna be a
Yeah.
series.
Well, I mean, back to Carol, she shared the article with us earlier this week.
Right.
Apparently, like there's a shortage of shows of pilots being produced, which obviously makes the chances
Yes.
even greater for it. So
And
I
the
think
article also led us in the direction that this looks like this is going to be NBC proper. This is not Peacock. This is going to be NBC proper. It will probably air on Peacock either like within 24 hours or be simulcast. They do that with a lot of their shows now. They
sure.
simulcast a lot of their shows on Peacock. So if you have Peacock, you'll be able to watch it, as it airs, but you could also watch it just over the air on NBC. It seems like too.
Sure, fantastic. I mean, I've already cut the cable. I'll have to have Hulu to watch it anyway, no matter what. But it will be appointment television.
Oh, destination
Yeah,
viewing.
yeah. Either way, Peacock, NBC, whichever. Yeah. So we have Nanrisa, and then we have an unofficial one, and this is a Matt Dale exclusive. This is something that he pulled from Instagram, possibly. And this is from the fact that she was tagged in the pictures of one of the Instagram posts from either Martin or Brian. Jewel, how do you say her last name? State? Jewel
Yeah.
State.
Yeah, so here's a couple of tidbits about that. Is that obviously I think probably best known, at least for a time, best known for her role in Firefly as Kaylee, but has worked with Martin before on Stargate Atlantis. She had a recurring role in Stargate Atlantis, and I believe ended up being moved into the main cast at some point of that show. There was a hilarious article that I read about connecting
You texted
the
that.
quantum leap
Yeah, I didn't respond to that, but yeah.
universe to the Stargate universe, like unofficially, because one of Martin's other shows had a character, the same character appear, played by Bill Nye, and that that maybe he would attempt to do the same thing again or whatever. Which I was just sort of like, man, we're really reaching for like something newsworthy to tie this in or whatever. But that said, obviously this is someone that Martin is familiar with, that the production team knows, that we know she's in Canada right now. That's something that you were able to figure out. So it looks like, yes, she's going to be involved. Now the question is, and this is the big question right now, because we were talking earlier about it, and we kind of assumed that she would be playing potentially playing Janus, which is an incredibly important role. But then we started thinking about it and looking about ages and another actor who apparently is involved with the show, potentially involved with the show, and now I'm wondering if she's just not just, but if she's going to be Naomi and be kind of the guest star of the episode, and if they're setting up a precedent to use and utilize talent, like Jewel, that has that sort of cachet and sort of the the sci-fi geek kind of community to bring that kind of extra bit of pop to these episodes on occasion and have those guest stars be of that nature. Because in the original series we had a lot of guest stars that were virtual unknowns at the time that they were in the show. We did have some better known guest stars, but it was very, very, very rare where we had like a well-known guest star, and I think she would qualify as a well-known guest star. So, for the purposes of the pilot, it would make sense if she was playing that role as opposed to playing Janus. Although I certainly don't want to disqualify her in any way based off of her age. She's still a very young 39, but of playing a role like Janus, because I don't think that would make her inappropriate for that role in any way. So don't mistake me for, yeah.
Sure.
But I wonder if Janus is not younger. I don't know.
Yeah. So we skimmed over this last week. We didn't talk about it, even though there had been a Twitter conversation about it. And since it's been talked about, like a lot of people, relatively speaking, among Quantum Leap fandom, a lot of people have been talking about it on Twitter this last week. Should we talk about Janus? So in the character description, the cast breakdown, Janus is just described as a mysterious woman. Someone pointed out on Twitter and asked us if we knew about it, even though there is no official canon out there anywhere of Al and Beth's four daughters that get revealed to us through the title card at the end of the final episode. Somewhere in about 2016, Quantum Leap wikis were updated to give us the names of Al and Beth's daughters, which were Alexis, Ella, Samantha, and Janus.
Okay. So here's the thing. Uh, I immediately, upon Matt sharing this or seeing this, and Matt and I kind of talking about it, I went to Wikipedia to try and figure out where the hell this came from because I had never heard of their names being disclosed before in any sort of official capacity. I went to the Wikipedia page. I immediately investigated when the edits had made. I was the one that told Matt that, like, this was done in 2016, blah, 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 that the IP was unknown, that they didn't have a user attached to it, like a lot of other edits that are made, that the user had only edited like 3 other websites, one from like a jazz musician from Canada and one from Sam Beckett's Wikipedia page,
Sure.
and which was actually an incorrect edit because they edited something about Tom being dead, and it's just sort of like, but he's
No.
not dead because that's Leap on Part 2. But for whatever reason, this person had added in the names of Al's daughters. So it's weird because it's not canon, if you will. To be talking about Quantum Leap canon seems like such a silly thing to do because the show didn't really have like, it didn't have a Bible, like you've said before,
Sure.
in the same way that a lot of other, shows might have one. And things certainly changed from the time we, had the Genesis to mirror image. But that, of course, caused a lot of speculation, a lot of people saying things. I can neither confirm nor deny that this is the case. But it's a pretty tenuous link. Could Steve and Brian have been, Googling stuff late at night and trying to figure out, like, make sure they had all their ducks in the row and saw this name and been like, oh, we're going to use that name for this character because this character is, Al's daughter? Sure, maybe that's what they did. Could it just be a massive coincidence? Yeah, it could also be that. And Janus might have absolutely nothing to do with Al Calavici.
Those things could be either of those things could be true.
It
was just interesting because, like, when people started asking us that on Twitter, I was like, I feel like such a horrible fan that I didn't know it. And I was like, did I miss it in the novels? And then I forgot. And Matt reminded us during our conversation, none of the novels take place after the last episode,
right,
of the TV series. None of the novels address what happens to Sam and Al in the project post mirror image.
Right. Although,
so the daughters are never mentioned, so we don't know.
Right. Although we were talking about this too, we were thinking that there were mentions in Pulitzer and Mirror's Edge. Isn't that what we the conclusion that we came to?
No, there were mentions of a Tom being alive.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Very definitely in Mirror's Edge, and I'm not sure. I think Pulitzer too, but that he was a senator and had some sort of contact and some sort of sway in the Senate in regards to Project Quantum Leap.
Right. And has a much bigger role in Mirror's Edge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's fascinating to see all of this come out. I mean, it's weird because the fact of the matter is, it's like, I'm just gonna say it straight out. I am not going to say who Janus is. Like, yes, we know who Janus is, but I am not going to disclose that information. Yeah, it's just weird. It's weird that's like that is out there, and that people have kind of, decided to kind of run with that. And it's fascinating to me. And again, also, I think shows that, there's potentially, depending on the route this goes, these guys might have done their homework. I don't know. We'll see.
Sure. I don't know. It's interesting. Speaking of, like, what is officially canon, and this is a bit of a tangent, but just worth mentioning because, like, occasionally a fan will bring it up. A lot of people wonder, like, the last episode of the TV series, like, kind of leaps it up in the air. Like, is Sam left leaping forever because of the change that Sam makes at the final episode? He makes it so that Sam and Al never meet. And so that is what gets him stranded in time.
Right.
And I just say, like, as far as canon goes, Don Bellisario has said several times that he believes that there are certain moments in time that are immutable. No matter what changes happen, these things will absolutely happen. And Sam and Al meeting and becoming best friends, working together, is one of those immutable things that no matter what changes in the timeline happen, Sam and Al meet.
Right.
So if you're wondering how they're going to explore that in the new series, like I don't think that that's ever going to become a thing of like Sam and Al never met.
Well, I mean, it's clear. It's clear. I mean, we've already mentioned it a couple of times. I mean, it's clear from the pilot that yeah, I mean,
Sure.
Sam and Al know one another. Like, I mean, it's
Yeah,
clear from the
absolutely.
pilot that like Al was the observer in the original
Sure.
project, and that Sam was the leaper. Like, I mean, that is made abundantly
Admittedly
clear.
clear.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, canon is one of those things that is an incredibly, at times, frustrating and limiting thing, because it should, you know, I used to think that it mattered, but it doesn't. What matters is telling a good story. Now, a
Sure.
certain fidelity to what has come before, I think, is a part of telling a good story. But if you're chained, you know, by something that somebody once wrote, especially knowing that somebody once wrote it in, you know, 1990, when they had no idea that 33 years later, you know,
Sure.
people would be, you know, ripping it apart and talking about it on podcasts or whatever. I think that just gets in the way. Uh, but what we can draw from what has been said, by Belisario and by some others, is that the TV show is what counts. The
Mhm.
novels, as great as some of them are not a part of like the official canon.
Yeah.
They are, for a lot of fans, myself included, you know, a form of kind of headcanon of what could have also taken place,
Mhm.
of exploring certain elements, you know, Prelude, Pulitzer, you know, Mirror's Edge in particular. Like, those novels like absolutely give us quite a bit, um, that I think was left unsaid, or, you know, gaps that weren't filled in by the show. But ultimately, yeah, they were something that
Yeah.
were driven more by let's sell some books and not
Sure.
let's continue the story of Sam and Al.
Merchandising. Yeah.
Yeah, merchandising.
Yeah. Carol Davis, she even mentioned like she's as far as she knew, she thought like Don Belisario did not even want the novels to exist.
Yeah.
Like they was out of his control. It was like you said, it was a way to cash in and write some books.
And at that point in
And
time,
some
like,
of them were good books, but yeah.
I mean, and at that point in time, everything had a book. You know, I think what happened is, and I mean this sincerely, I think what happened is people saw the success of the line of Star Trek novels. Star
Sure.
Wars, you know, started off and had the huge blockbuster of, you know, of Heir to the Empire, and I think pretty much everything else wanted to get in on that, because before you knew it, I mean, even today, you know, you've got all sorts of stuff. Any television show that has ever existed, you know what I mean, pretty much has like a novel or whatever. So,
Mhm.
you know, it's only natural that we were going to get them. The comic books, obviously, I mean, the comic books are wildly varying in quality. Some of them are like, what is this? How did this even get made? Like, this is terrible, you know? Some of them are so agenda driven that they don't feel like Quantum Leap. No offense, because it's actually a decent story, but it doesn't feel like Quantum Leap. And some of it does things that are not in line with the TV show at all. So
Mhm.
like the comic books are so far down the line of like what could or should be canon. Um, and then there's all the fan fiction, fan films, you know, all the other crap that exists out there that basically doesn't mean anything, and certainly won't mean anything to the new creative team. So, I don't know. We've gone on some pretty big
We've gone
tangents,
on, yeah.
but
We've gone on. If you're a relatively new listener, this is probably our most tangent heavy episode we've done in a while. And for our old fans, welcome home.
yeah, right. So, last but certainly not least, let's
Mhm.
talk a little bit about, Eve C. Lindley. This is another name that Matt, you know, through his investigative prowess, has pulled out, as having recently been followed by, Martin Garrow and, Mason Alexander
Brian,
Park.
yeah. Mhm.
Me.
Oh, sure.
And that she could indeed have a role here. This is where the confusion started to kind of evolve in our minds, because, she is 29 years old. And I think in my mind that may be young for the role of Naomi. I think, you know, Naomi, on the page reads as being a little bit older. You know, there's a plot element in particular that leads me to believe that she's a little bit older. Not that somebody who's 29 can't play, you know, up a few years or whatever.
Sure.
But I'm wondering if if she is indeed in the show, maybe she is our Janus and not Jewel State. So I don't know. I don't know. And she might not even be in the show. And Jewel might not even be in the show. I have a feeling
There's
she'll
just
probably be in
guesses.
the
Yeah.
show, but yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe they're just like tagging people in the photos just to mess with us.
Yeah, right, exactly. No.
You know?
I don't think
No,
they're doing
no,
that.
you don't think that?
Could be. We'll see.
I don't know. Come on the show. Talk to us about it. Well, we'll
Yeah,
gladly. Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm holding Steve Lillian to what he tweeted at us. Okay, he said, "Let's
Yeah.
chat in the fall," and by God, we're gonna chat in the fall.
We're gonna chat. We're gonna yeah.
So yeah, so there you have it. There's our cast. Raymond Lee is Dr. Ben Song, and Caitlin Bassett is Addison. Mason Alexander Park is Ian Wright. Ernie Hudson is Herbert Magic Williams. Nanrisa Lee is Jen, and maybe Jewel State is Janice or Naomi, and maybe Eve C. Lindley is Janice or Naomi. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And maybe Scott Bakula will be in it and maybe he won't. We'll see.
Maybe.
I can tell you this, his picture is at least probably going to be in it. As is Dean Stockwell's.
Yes, probably. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yes, and we know production has started. If you are not following Brian Winbrandt, Steve Lillian, or Martin Garrow in particular, I say find their Instagram. Brian Winbrandt does not have a Twitter account, but he does have an Instagram. Martin Garrow has both. Follow them on social media. They are posting stuff. They are posting, production photos. Martin Garrow even posted a little video earlier. The information that we have at this point, we haven't gotten any new information from the Observer or Captain Galaxy, is basically, it's out there for people to find. So follow them, check out what they're posting. We know they're in production right now. We have a feeling that they were shooting some stuff from the 1989 scenes yesterday on the 12th, and then they were shooting some current time stuff today. They're going to be obviously shooting through the end of the month. I cannot wait to get our first taste, whatever it'll be. Maybe we'll get something even more exciting this coming week. And as soon as we release this podcast, I'm sure that they will drop something that we will. We'll have to wait
just to mess with this. Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait. I think this was like we mentioned this in the chat with Matt, like the teaser trailer.
Yeah.
For the show.
Yeah. I know. I mean, are we going to get that soonish? You know what I mean? Like, are we going to get some sort of footage? Like we were talking about this last time around, the upfronts with the advertisers is May 16th. Will they show some footage then? Will it be, leaked or released to the public? Will we have to wait until like maybe August or September before we see anything? Will they wait that long? And then I was speculating that we might, depending on how things go, we might get like a Comic-Con panel in July and hear from the cast then and get a screening of some footage there that will then be posted on the internet to whet our appetite for what we believe will be an October release date. All I will say, as I have said since, the very beginning of the news and getting the script in our hands, it's going to be good. I believe in it. I believe in this team. I cannot wait to see what they do. And I think everyone is in for a treat and some really fun surprises that we have not talked about at all, or that we have denied.
Yeah. Or that even we know yet. I'm sure.
We don't know.
We just read the script. I'm sure things are going to change.
Right. There's a lot of stuff that can change.
A lot of stuff that can change. I feel like there were a couple of scenes in the pilot script that seemed like wish list things. Like I wonder, are we actually going to get that scene? Yes. Or is that just what the writers, is that what the showrunners, what they really want? We'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm excited about it. You think so?
Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yes. I'm excited about it. But I guess we should leap out of here for this week. Maybe next week we'll come back with Star-Crossed.
Maybe. Who knows? It's all
maybe
up in the air.
Let's see if they...
Did we mention, by the way, that we might change just a little bit about what we're planning on doing with the revisited episodes? Have we talked about that yet?
We have not. We should put this out there. Put it out for the social medias.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go on. But we initially, we thought we would basically cover each and every episode, right? We do it in order, just how we'd done last time around. And then we started thinking about what would really be kind of essential for fans, new fans in particular, that were wanting to get
Mhm.
prepared for the October release. Now, obviously, there's plenty of time for people to binge watch the whole series if they want to, but we thought that maybe it would be better for us, and better for the show and better for the fans that have been with us from the very beginning, if instead we just revisited what we would consider kind of the essentials. We've done our top 10 list, we've done our favorite episodes, we've talked about that in the past. Obviously, this isn't that. These are the episodes that we consider, for one reason or another, to be kind of essential to the fabric of Quantum Leap, that do add something to the mythology. Some of them might not. Some of them might just be kind of your standard episode of the week, but we think it's so brilliant that you can't miss this.
Mhm.
And
Torture
we
for
thought
trying.
Americanization of Machiko.
Mhm.
No, 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 definitely not. Thou shalt not, however.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, we wanted to kind of just stick to the essentials because that way we would be able to kind of get through sort of the hit list first and then maybe fill in the gaps later on down the road at some point, because obviously there's a finite number of weeks between now and the premiere, and those weeks keep getting interrupted by all this new wonderful news that is released by the production team and the creative team. So
Sure.
we'll be changing it up just a little bit. We are going to obviously include Starcrossed because it is an incredibly important episode to the fabric of the show. So
Mhm.
obviously that we're going with that, but we're going to skip around is basically what I'm trying to say.
Sure. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea
Yeah.
because I think there's some episodes, season 3, season 4, like, yeah, we've covered them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on
But
that note,
but
should we
we
leap out of
love
here?
it.
Get
We
some
love it.
sleep. We
Yeah.
are recording this on the day after daylight savings time. Our kids'
How'd your kids
bedtime.
go down?
They went down pretty well. We Betsy planned a day to tire them out.
Oh,
So
nice.
this afternoon I had a workshop this afternoon over Zoom, and then this afternoon we went to the St. Louis Zoo. To
Awesome.
kind of time. We didn't see very many animals. It was all rides. Like as soon as Harrison saw the train going around, like he just wanted to ride that. So he rode that twice. The merry-go-round. We saw some animals along the way, but it was mostly like riding like whatever rides were available. But they both passed out pretty early tonight. How did your kiddos
Nice.
do?
Jude went down pretty easily. He's 4 months old, and we just started sleep training, so we're really trying to not repeat the same mistakes we made with Hattie. And he did well. He woke up at one point while I was putting Hattie down, and I was just sort of like, oh man, now I'm in for it because Jess had run to the grocery store real quick. But he fell back asleep on his own, which was really nice. Hattie had a little bit of a struggle, but I don't know if it was related to daylight savings time. It might have just been she's 3, which sometimes that's one of those things where, if we're having a particularly tough day or whatever, I'll just turn to my wife and be like, she's 3. It's like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
okay. We're good parents. She's an awesome kid. We're going to get through this. Everything will be fine.
awesome.
And then, I scoop her up, tell her I love her, tell her she's an awesome kid, but it's not okay to hit daddy in the face.
Oh, Eleanor, the youngest one, she's going through that phase right
Yeah.
now too. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's awesome though. She was
yeah.
wonderful. By the time I left her room, she was very happy, and then faded off to sleep before we even started recording, which was cool.
Fantastic.
So yeah. So this has been one of our longer episodes, obviously.
In recent
Recently,
memory, yeah.
we did go on some tangents. It is kind of what we do. We're gonna try and lock it down, keep it at about an hour in future episodes, but or less. But there was just so much to talk about.
There
And
is.
I felt like so much happened this past week that it was
Mm-hmm.
one of those things where it was like we could have dropped a new episode Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and
Yeah,
then our regular episode, and still had stuff to talk about just because
yeah.
we got the cast announcements, we got the production photos and stuff like that. So, and when Steve Lillian responded to one of our tweets about Ernie Hudson, I said, "What's next?" kind of as a joke, and he's like, he said something about Wednesday, just wait for
Sure.
Wednesday, and I was just sort of like, there's
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
So
yeah. And he
yeah.
he liked our Instagram post too, just reposting their pictures. So yeah, they they're interactive with
They
the fans.
are, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just another display of how important I think that this is to them.
Yeah.
And you almost can imagine, and hopefully we'll get the chance to ask them this question one day, whether it's through a tweet or Zoom or whatever opportunity we might have, to just say like, was this like a project that you always kind of wanted to do but never thought you'd be able to, and then one day all of a sudden the opportunity presented itself and you were like, holy shit, I get to
Yeah.
write Quantum Leap, like I'm going to get to do this. Like I was curious.
Yeah.
I genuinely was curious about that.
Yeah. I would love to hear the story one
Yeah.
day. But anyway, we should jump out of here. Anyway,
let's do it.
Fates Wide Wheel. Find us on the web, fateswidewheel.com, across social media, Fates Wide Wheel, patreon.com. Thank you again, Dana, for becoming our first Patreon.
Thank you,
And
Dana.
again,
Thank you.
follow us on whatever your favorite podcatcher is. Give us a review, help us get our name out there, spread the word. If you know another Quantum Leap fan who hasn't listened to our podcast yet, share.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Put the word out there. And
if you if you're so inclined and you want to check out the other stuff out there, remember the Quantum Leap podcast obviously is still going strong. And there's also a newer podcast, the Waiting Room podcast. So I believe there's even another one that might have just started up, but I cannot think of the name of it right now. So
I bet. I mean, everybody's going to start.
There's going to be more, right? There's going to be
welcome.
More,
come on, yeah,
welcome to the community, and and I think that one of the opportunities that we have that's really unique right now is to like basically really cement this fandom as being something that's important and integral to the show in the same way that you see with with other fandoms, and to also be a place of positivity like you don't always see in other fandoms. Which is gonna be, hey, look, we're starting to
you know what
on that one. I know, but let's give it a shot. Damn it.
we're gonna get there. And like I said last week, I'm not focusing on fans who are going to say certain things about the new series and new cast members. I'm just not engaging. I just want to geek out with my fellow geeks.
Yes. Yeah. Whew, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of, final note, we have a ton of new members in the Facebook Fates Wide Wheel group.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you. I need to get on here and actually give you like an individual shout out and welcome all the new members.
Just approved one tonight, and actually the funny thing is that the individual I approved tonight is in the industry, and it made me like, as I was hitting approve, I was sort of like, are they working on the show? Like, or they just happen to be a camera operator? I don't know. But yeah. So welcome to all of the new members. I was trying to be super communicative the past few weeks, and then this past week has been a little bit more difficult just because there's been some new things kind of thrown my way. So I'm going to try to be as available as I have been in the past. But yeah. Anyway, we're rambling at this point. Let's leap out of here, right?
Let's leap out of here.
Supposed to do, yeah.
Let's leap out of here.
That.
Yeah.
Thank you all so very much. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Stay safe out there. We really appreciate it. My name's Sam.
I'm Dennis. We'll see you next week for something.
Something.
All right.
Something Quantum Leap related.
Something Quantum Leap related. Bye, y'all.